Hello, my dears. One of my biggest pet peeves, that sounds bad, struggles, frustrations, something like that, of working with a lot of autistic people is that we are the most unconfident, self-deprecating group of people that I have ever met. And it totally makes sense because the world constantly tells us that we are too much, or that we're not enough, or that we're annoying, or that we're wrong, or broken, or defective, etc., etc. I could go on. So the fact that we typically have little to no self-confidence is completely and totally logical and reasonable. But also, when it comes to a society that tells us that we're wrong, defective, etc., if you're really weird and really confident about that fact, people usually don't take issue with you being weird, which then makes you more confident in not following social norms. And so it's a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy in a strange way, if that makes sense. What I'm trying to say is that a huge part of why we struggle as autistic people in the universe can be made a lot better with a little bit of confidence, which I know way easier said than done. But today we're going to talk about some ways to help gain some confidence and to take up the space in the world that you deserve to take up, because you do. As I always say in my social skills related videos, you do not need to change who you are for other people. Please do not take this video as me pressuring you into doing that. But also, I'm not even sure if what I'm saying today would fit into that category, because I'm not telling you to, I'm more like pressuring you into not changing who you are for other people and learning to be confident about the fact that you don't change who you are for other people. So I don't know. Also, I'm gonna add this into my playlist for accessible education probably, because I want teachers to see this and learn from it as well. Maybe. We'll see. If you're watching that playlist and you're like, why am I here? That's why. Also, in case this lighting looks absolutely horrific, the overhead light in my dorm room broke this morning. Like, the light just flickers and then turns off. But I have deadlines to meet with this video, so we're doing it anyway. Audio description, if you can see me. Well, I guess audio description is not really for people who can see me. Either way, it's a little dark, okay? We're rolling with it. Audio description, I'm a white person in their early 20s with shoulder-length curly brown hair, clear round glasses, and a white button-down blouse and a black and white cardigan. I'm sitting in front of a bookshelf and my lighting is borderline sketchy. I'm sorry about it. I'm gonna put in a work order tonight. Great, moving on. So today we're gonna talk about presence, confidence, and self-esteem, why those are important, and how you can make those a part of your existence, if you so desire. Absolutely no pressure, but I hope that you do desire that, because you deserve to feel confident and have high self-esteem and like take up space and enjoy doing so. I find you to be quite cool, and I like you, so I hope that you also find yourself to be cool and like yourself. Also, a lot of what's going on in this video is based on the book Letters to a Young Artist by Anna Deavere Smith. Anna? I already forgot. I looked it up. By Anna Deavere Smith. It's incredible. I highly, highly recommend the read, whether you're an artist or not, because it is an incredible book that kind of helped me to find my place in the world, so you should read it. I'll link it in the description for you. But moving on, what are confidence and self-esteem? These things are way more difficult to define than you really think they're going to be until you have to sit down and write a video where you're defining them. And so I've put this video off for 3 months, but we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get it done. It's gonna be so great and amazing, awesome. Okay, so confidence is basically a level of trust that you have that someone or something can be relied on no matter what. With self-confidence, it's about that level of trust in yourself. To quote the book that I mentioned earlier, it's not about the roughness or the smoothness of the ride, it's about how you can handle it. Confidence is about knowing what you can and cannot do, being willing to take on challenges and take responsibility for your actions, and trusting that you have the ability and capability to figure things out. Confidence as a word or like an idea feels very static. It's a thing that feels solid and untouchable and unchangeable. So if you need to think of that as an action instead, if that helps your brain, the active version of confidence would be determination, persistence, stick-to-itiveness, and perseverance. People tend to lose or just have low confidence in one of two ways. For some people, when they're little, they are praised for being able to tie their shoes and learn their ABCs, and they become the gifted kid all through school, and they kind of coast until one day suddenly things become difficult for them and they don't know how to handle that, and they lose a lot of confidence because they feel like, no, they're not smart anymore, they're not good at things anymore, they can no longer deal with challenges, and they feel like a disappointment. Why are things beeping? That's known as gifted kid burnout, and it's a very real thing. For other people, when they're little, they struggled with basic things like tying their shoes and learning their ABCs, and they were teased by others for doing so, and therefore they never got the chance to even build up the confidence in order to get it squashed. I don't like how I'm phrasing anything in this video. Now, for most people, it's somewhere in between those two things. Major causes of losses of confidence include feeling rejected by peers, having caregivers that are overly critical, reprimanding, or limit a child's or young adult's exploration, difficulties transitioning into a constructed ideal of what an adult should be. We'll talk about should in a bit. Feelings of constant failure or of consistent underperformance, usually because of problematic standards, and the media constantly pushing an ideal person onto you that you have to be a good person. And for people who exist outside of constructed norms, aka queer people, neurodivergent and disabled people, people of color, trans people, etc. They get hit extra hard with those norms and expectations, including like basic loss of privilege of not being the norm. And so they get beat down harder and faster than, say, a cis able-bodied white man. Not saying that cis able-bodied white men cannot also really struggle with confidence. I am saying that typically they have less barriers to confidence. They have more base level confidence because they don't have the barriers in the way than the average trans disabled person of color, for example. Now, in the category of disability, we usually see that self-confidence is fairly low because we spend all of our time told over and over and over again that we are broken and we can't do things and that there's something fundamentally wrong with us. And this is typically worse for people with learning or social disabilities because it's one thing to have a visual physical disability and like not be able to, say, kick a soccer ball. And that's a very different thing from not being able to make friends and constantly failing your tests and classes because the standards that we have are not accommodating to how you learn and how you function. And you don't have the developmental knowledge to understand that systems do exist and that systems are terrible towards people who are outside of the norm and that you are therefore not stupid or unlovable, because all of these ideas start to consolidate and exist in our brain around the age of 4 or 5 when we developmentally cannot understand that there's structural powers in play that are making us feel not worthy, if that makes sense. For people with inconsistent disabilities, it can also be incredibly difficult because one day you may be able to do something and then the next day you cannot. And this heightens anxiety and makes them even less confident in their ability to perform. A University of Michigan article cites the tendency for children with learning difficulties to see their successes as luck and their failures as faults in their own abilities. And that is sad. It's also accurate, but it's very sad regardless. Now, what is the difference between self-confidence and self-esteem? If we're looking at confidence as a measure of trust and reliability, we can look at esteem as a sense of value. So you could think that you are very valuable and also have no confidence that you could do anything. That's high self-esteem and low confidence. But that's rare. It's rare, but it's possible. It can happen. The mismatch that we most commonly see are students who might be really kick butt on the sports field and have really high confidence in that area of their life, but then in school really struggle, and so they therefore think that they're stupid and they're only valuable on the sports field. And that's how we get athletes who completely emotionally and mentally fall apart after an injury because they think sports are the only thing that they're capable of and the only thing that makes them a worthy human being. That is high confidence and low self-esteem. But it's also very common for people to obviously have both low confidence and low self-esteem, because if you don't trust yourself to be able to face challenges, you're fairly likely to also believe that you don't matter and don't deserve to take up space, which is false because obviously you do, because oh my gosh, you're amazing. But it's also important to note that, again, self-confidence and self-esteem are not static things. There's something that ebbs and flows. I know that when I'm like composing a song, my self-confidence and self-esteem are pretty high. I feel capable of what I'm doing. I feel like I'm a valuable part of the world, that I'm giving something back by creating art for people. But then when I see videos of people younger than me in theater conservatories being way more talented than I could ever be, solely because they've had the resources and also didn't have to go through like 3 years of brain damage recovery and they got to just do conservatory stuff, my anxiety spikes and my self-confidence and self-esteem drop until I remind myself of those things, that they have those resources that I couldn't have had at the same time. I also find my self-esteem and self-confidence to be pretty high in theater classes and pretty low in statistics classes. And they also ebb and flow day to day as well, just based on how I'm feeling, how tired I am, what's going on in my life, if I'm feeling more sick one day, etc., etc. It really hinges on everything in life. And what's tricky is self-esteem and self-confidence are not things that can be built from the outside in. I know that I had a period of my life where I was dating a person and they told me every day how intelligent and beautiful and amazing I was and how I was changing their life and I was so important, and I felt my self-confidence and self-esteem absolutely soar. But then the second that they became a trash can human and they said some horrible things and they dumped me, my outside source of self-confidence and self-esteem was gone and I completely fell apart because I didn't have that outside source and I had no inside source. And that's not cute and also not really safe either. So that's why it's important to take the time to slowly build those feelings from the inside out. This is something you can definitely work on with a therapist. You probably should. I highly recommend that. I'm not a therapist at all, but I also understand that therapy is not accessible to everybody. So I did some research and that's what we're gonna go over some tips now, but I am not like, go to therapy also. I just exist. A big part of working on self-confidence and self-esteem is reflection. Or maybe I'm just a Quaker and I deal with everything by reflecting. But I think it's for sure helpful regardless of religion. Anyway, it's great to try and figure out where your sore spots are and where your low self-confidence and self-esteem may originate from. For example, I know that growing up undiagnosed autistic, I was constantly told overtly and covertly that I was unlovable and only valuable when I was being a genius child. And so when I feel stupid, my self-esteem drops a lot. So I started to work on understanding the systems that are stacked against me and why I feel stupid now as a college student and didn't maybe when I was younger, understand why I've been made to feel the way that I do, understand that it's not my fault, and figure out ways to heal those parts of me that have very much internalized that message and taken a lot of shame from it. Another thing that you can do is try to figure out what confidence looks and feels like to you, because it's different for everybody. What makes you feel good in your own skin, what doesn't. And anytime you find yourself going, well, I should be like this or I should do this, just get rid of the shoulds, because that's what somebody else is telling you you need to be and not what you're telling yourself you need to be. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be? How can you go about that? And how can you learn to like yourself as who you are? Because you have to live with yourself the most. I'm a big proponent of sitting down and deliberately creating yourself like you create a D&D character and then trying on pieces to see what fits and leaving the ones that don't behind. We've talked about this before. It's great. It's how I am who I am today and how I created a version of myself that I actually like. Also recognize that you're not going to be perfectly confident tomorrow. You're not going to fix this overnight. This is a process that takes time to build up. Though, knowing that you have a plan to make your confidence better might actually make you feel infinitely better in a very short amount of time. I know that I personally felt that way, but the rest of it takes time. So be patient with yourself and understand that. It takes a lot of time to unlearn things that have been drilled into our heads for most of our lives. That's why people go to therapy for a long period of time. And learning self-confidence and self-esteem is literally retraining your brain to look at your own existence and personhood completely differently. You are creating a growth mindset and accepting that things can change and grow and learning how to say, you know what, I deserve to take up space because I am cool and I'm a valuable person. And learning to actually believe that when you say it. As an autistic person, my understanding of space and time and emotion is an absolute disaster, and it's therefore very easy for me to get stuck in one emotion and not know how to get out of it because I feel like I've only felt this way forever, so that must be my reality and I cannot express how much that is not the case. I have a rule that I am not allowed to think thoughts past 9:15 p.m. because that's late at night and that's always when my brain gets a little funky and a little extra sad. So start to pay attention to how your emotions and your feelings may ebb and flow about yourself, and learn what those patterns are so that you can intervene in your own brain and go, you know what, I'm not going to sit on the floor hating myself right now. It's the time of day when I feel terrible, and it's not true because it only happens this time of day. So instead, I'm overtired and I'm going to go to bed. And then you're going to save yourself a lot of time and energy and things that you need to heal from. And while I've said before that self-confidence and self-esteem do not come from the outside in, and you should really be rather wary if that does happen, you also still deserve to surround yourself with people who make you feel nice inside, and who help boost you up a bit. Like, don't rely solely on that, but also don't surround yourself with people who make you feel worthless. There's also some level of fake it till you make it involved. Letters to a Young Artist talks a lot about presence and how people automatically want you to take up space when you have presence. And presence is not like purposefully attracting attention or being a gimmick or a brand. It's about finding the light and being a part of it. Anna Deavere Smith describes it as alertness and being aware of others around you, paying attention and keeping that attention on others, empathy, authenticity, focus, and making it appear like presence and paying attention to other people is what you're wired to do. Back when I was in brain damage recovery, which I talked about a hot second before, I felt like I had no sense of self because memory loss is weird. And I found a lot of comfort in Anastasia, the musical, not the movie. We can talk about that another day. And when I didn't know how to act in situations, I would think, okay, what would Anastasia do? And over time, that confident yet kind and present Disney princess personality kind of meshed with my own, in the sense that like I kept the things that fit and felt natural and I got rid of the ones that didn't. And that helped me to walk around with confidence and presence, and other people started to feed off of that energy in a good way. So that was a huge help in me like making me like myself and making others around me feel valued and loved and worthy as well. And that sounds like I'm trying to tell you how good of a person I am. I swear I'm not trying to do that. I'm just kind of explaining that like this is how other people have told me they perceive me and how I created that and felt comfortable in that myself, if that makes sense. So, while you don't at all ever need to be widely liked or popular to have a happy and successful life, because that is in no way the case, we do live in a world where neurotypical norms of self-confidence and self-esteem are, unfortunately and fortunately, our currency. And being widely liked and popular is not in any sense equivalent to high confidence and high self-esteem. People just tend to conflate the two for some reason. My battery died, and then the cleaning person just started vacuuming because today is a Murphy's Law kind of day, so we're just gonna finish this up. And I always caption my videos, so if you can't hear me, I'm sorry. what matters is that if you like yourself, other people are going to like you too. We are all insecure beings, and if our friends continuously talk about how, oh, like, I feel like I don't matter, I feel like I don't deserve to take up space, that's going to make other people who are there around also insecure about all the same things, and so then we're not going to want to spend time with you because that makes everybody feel bad. So please know that you deserve to take up space. Anybody saying that you don't is not a nice person, and you should not be spending time with them because you deserve way better than that. And know that you're awesome, and that you're amazing, and you're intelligent, and you're absolutely killing it, especially because the system is entirely stacked against you, and that's an important thing to continue to remember. And yeah, I hope this was helpful, and as always, thanks for listening, thanks for learning. Remember, it's never too late to start over, and I look forward to seeing you, my dear, in the next one.